The reality is that when you look across college sports landscape, football's ruling every decision. The way these conferences have shifted and all that has put more impact on women's basketball and women's sports in general. But you got to start changing the way that you perceive collegiate women's basketball. It's a business now. I think Gino was the one that called it out. He said, "This is semi-pros. This is not amateur basketball no more. Treat it that way."
All I want is credit, give me mine. We've been counted out too many times. They was hating, told them get in line. Ain't no breaks until we hit the finish line. I cannot retire from it.
Welcome to Sideline Stories, a can't retire from this podcast, where our common denominator is hoops. We're bringing you interviews, stories, and insight from all around the women's basketball world because, well, we really can't retire from this. Let's get into it. Just a heads up, we actually had this conversation weeks before the House versus NCAA settlement concluded. So if you're wondering, why are they talking about it like it hasn't already happened? That's why. But still, there's some really good stuff in this conversation. So without further ado, we're pressing play. It's us, back again, the Can't Retire Gang. If you don't know us, now you know us. It is Misha Jones here with you. Got Jasmine Dallas with you. Got Tanisha Benson with you. And the creator of Can't Retire From This, the documentary, the one who's responsible for bringing us all together. It's Melanie Page. And today, we want to have a little talk about money. The greenbacks, the cash. And one thing that we're very excited about this season, for the first time ever in the women's college game, teams who get to the NCAA tournament are earning units. Now, what is a unit, you might ask? Well, per NBC News in their story on it earlier this week, schools can earn units for making the tournament. The units are slices of the yearly television revenue that's brought in from the NCAA's media rights deal to broadcast the entire NCAA tournament. So in total, there's like $15 million allotted through 132 units. Every team that gets a slice, their conference gets that money. They split up that pool of money and redistribute it back to the schools in the conference over the next 3 years. So basically, you eat, everybody eats to varying degrees, but everybody in your conference eats. And now, of course, we're talking women's basketball. So that means on the men's side, they've already been doing it for forever, basically. They actually started doing it in 1991. But regardless, this is a big step that's got the potential to really shake some things up for teams across the country. That's money that can, bridge the gap between resources, frankly, that are available in men's basketball versus women's basketball. So very exciting time. And what we want to talk about first is what was everybody's initial reactions to that news? It was actually announced before the season, sometime before the season. So when you first heard about it, what was your reaction to that news?
About damn time.
Real.
Like, but I will say this. Here's the hard part, because I think that's the no-brainer, right? Like to say, okay, thank you, finally. And especially because the Caitlin Clark era, let's be real, that was a lot of money left on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great to see. One of the challenging things that has been sitting on my heart about this is the question of, was ignorance bliss from I don't even know whose perspective, to be honest, but this perceived value versus the actual value. The actual value needed to happen. But the information as it came out, you're like, one thing, it took 30 years. Thank God it's finally happening. Why I say was ignorance bliss was people probably assumed it was happening. And so realizing that it wasn't, you're like, that I think it's thrown people into a lot of very confusing emotions. It was for me, in the sense of like, okay, so now there's an actual value tied to the success of a program. So now institutions have to at least pay attention to the fact that having this coach in this position actually does benefit our institution on a larger scale. There's also this like, yeah, but look at it compared to the men's, even though the women's is at such a peak. So now, oh, I thought this was already happening. Now, not only did I realize it wasn't happening, but look how much cheaper it is. Is that a positive or a negative reaction to that too? So I'm just very confused on that. On the secondary, the initial reaction is like, thank God, about damn time. Secondary reaction is like, I am conflicted.
Yeah, because when you could go get a whole cake and
they cover the cake up in one of them little things. You only get a slice, but you could have had the whole cake. It's gonna make you feel some type of way, you know.
Right.
The cake on
You're
the
like,
table.
thank you for the slice, but
Yes, like, but I got 3 other people with me. The homies want a piece of cake too, and now we all got to, Anyway, all right. So your initial reaction, about damn time, but also conflicting emotions.
yes.
What about the rest of us?
Yeah, similar to Jess, we're on the West Coast, we got similar mindsets. Yes, what who knew this wasn't happening? Who's holding us back? Who is the person that is dangling this carrot and moving goalposts for
Yes.
women's basketball to not get the equality? I thought Title IX was an era that was addressing some things, but I guess some things went under the table, under the bridge. And it's just surprising as more news gets out about what we still don't get. I'm annoyed, grateful, annoyed. I don't know, passing the mic.
Man, Mel, you took the words right out of my. Who getting jumped? That's all I need to know. Who getting jumped? You didn't toe the line. You didn't hold the line. You telling me 1991, bro? 1991.
Yeah.
You got women out there breaking their neck to play on these national stages, and you telling me y'all knew the whole time? Who getting fired? Forget, they probably ain't even in office no more. Who getting jumped? In the comments, if you know who was in leadership, put them in the comments because we coming for you. It's ridiculous.
I can't say I'm gonna go jump nobody.
Well, we got people that know people because this is
my
ridiculous.
God.
It's embarrassing. It literally, I was embarrassed. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, we supposed to be
Right.
happy. Y'all been stealing for years. Now I'm supposed to be
Right.
happy because you a thief. You
Right.
pickpocketing for 30 years, and now I'm grateful.
Gotta say thank you to a thief.
Thank you for not stealing no more. And we found out that you were stealing. Thank you. What? I'm confused.
Exactly.
Especially us former players, you lying people. I am fed up with it. I'm tired of it. Like, this is yet another layer of the lies and holding us back for years. There is no more like, oh, well, women this, women. I don't hear it now. Oh, no. Y'all been stealing.
Now, the one thing I will say about that is there are folks who are making that a point of contention. Like, is there actually, were people actually responsible for holding the game back? Or we had Gino Oriema on Good Game with Sarah Spain, not to plug the show, just to mention what he was mentioning. What he said was the NCAA and the folks who make those decisions had an opportunity earlier on to like use March Madness to that actual title, because as we know just now, basically the women's game has started to use March Madness during March Madness as one of the actual awards associated with the women's tournament. But he was saying that there are people, powers that be in the NCAA, who were like, actually, nah, we don't want to do that. And whether that's true or not, it just begs the question. You saw how much success was happening on the men's side year over year over year. You saw, especially UConn in its prime. Talk about Gino. UConn in its prime. You saw the remarkable things that were happening, not just in the women's regular season, but in the women's tournament. And nobody earlier than 2025 looked at the files and looked at the status of the women's tournament and said, probably make something shake with this. Nobody?
We need to sue.
Hey, I'm not a legal scholar. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if that's the thing we could do, but
Class action lawsuits.
Hey.
Absolutely. We got to hold people accountable.
No one.
We got to hold people accountable. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. The NCAA got lawsuits out the wazoo already too. So,
they about to be broke.
But moving on from that. So let's talk about the actual, new era that we're in and who stands to benefit. Who stands to benefit from this? So pros and cons. What potential problems could arise? And where do you think we're going to see the most positives based on this?
This is where, that's where I go back to that perceived value, actual value conversation, right? Like, what's the perception change versus what actually is changing? Because the reality is that when you look across college sports landscape, football's ruling every decision. right?
What am I?
So at the risk of sounding disrespectful, women's basketball is financially is pennies compared to football. So they are doing whatever football wants to do. So while there's going to be some shakeup, I think what's driving change, especially on the collegiate level, is football, right? And the fact that like, the way these conferences have shifted and all that, like that has put more impact on women's basketball and women's sports in general, what's happening in the football world, than this really is when I talk about actual value. You know what I'm saying? Because like the way these big conferences come together, you look at, the falling apart of the Pac-12, the massive size of the Big Ten, the Big 12. So that impact on women's basketball across other sports as well. Like I had the privilege of being at the Big Ten women's tournament and talking to actually a former softball player. And dang, like the impact that these conferences have had on sports like that I have not even been considering. But you look at the way, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, shout out to Big Ten, you guys, both UCLA and SC, but like that alone, the impact that has had on women's basketball, I don't know. That is changing how we operate much more than I think this financial piece will. Because you have to navigate that and having a portal and having NIL and all that other stuff. This may help support some NIL efforts, but you got to start changing the way that you perceive collegiate women's basketball. It's a business now. I think Gino was the one that called it out, speaking of Gino, when he said, this is semi-pros. This is not amateur basketball no more. Treat it that way. You have to in order to win nowadays. So
yeah, and to protect yourself as a coach, as a program, you know what I mean? That's a very interesting point, Jazz. Benson?
I agree with Jazz on we have to have a transparent metric of what is success, what's the standard, and how these, not just necessarily how the payouts are coming, but when we're talking about, okay, we have these units of paying and players are getting this and teams are getting this. That's a lot of people touching the money. I know for me, listen, transactional. Here's my $10. You get my $10. I don't want grandma, auntie, and then it get to cousin, and then we're going to write a cashier's check, and then we're going to deposit it, and then we're going to take that up. That's too many people touching the money now.
Not a cashier's check.
More, yeah. And I think more importantly, we need transparency. Y'all, do y'all understand that the colleges right now in the women's game, that they don't know how much they're going to get? With the collective, you understand they don't know that with this rev share. They have no idea how much they're gonna get. They know that I think football's around 75% of it. Like Jazz said, they don't know how much they're gonna get. So I think from us, I think fans and everybody around, there needs to be transparency when we're talking about this money. Because if we don't put it out there, I'm telling you, stuff is gonna slip through the cracks again. And then now we sit up here looking like boo-boo the fool, thinking that the women getting paid, and somebody gonna come out with a book in 2 years talking about how they ain't getting nothing.
I mean, but you make a really good point, because the first thing we talked about initial reactions, and I didn't really share mine, but the first thing that caught my eye is, oh, yes, these teams are earning units, but that money goes to the conference, and the conference then allocates. And you just mentioned the disillusion of the Pac-12, Jazz. That decision broke my and so many other people's hearts. And that was a conference making a decision for football that affected everybody else. And so to me, like you're saying, Benson, there's a lack of trust there a little bit. It doesn't really matter what conference we're talking about. I'm sure some, they got better leadership than others. But when you're telling me the conference is going to touch that money first, yeah, for example, William and Mary might get the most out of the CAA for winning the CAA championship this season. But is it the amount that they should be getting based on, X, Y, like we don't know. Like you're saying, we don't have a system for understanding that right now. So I think that's a really good point. Mel, pros, cons?
Yeah, as we talk, Jasmine mentioned the Big Ten and how Big Ten has 18 teams.
Stupid.
How
that is
crazy
dumb. That's 2 conferences.
That's big.
It is.
That's big.
I don't see that making sense. And a lot of those schools, all those schools are humongous schools, except for
big.
Northwestern. So I'm concerned about that. And then I'm concerned about the HBCU conferences, the MEAC and the SWAC. They don't necessarily always invest in the right things properly. And there's me coming from a MEAC school, like I've been a part of those worlds. So how is that
Yeah.
going to be allocated? Like there's just, like y'all mentioned, like too many hands are touching it, and everything is making me nervous these days. That's why I stay in the house. I'm also starting to see schools dropping lower from Division 1. So St. Francis
Mm.
in Pennsylvania is dropping
Wild.
from Division 1 to Division 3, I believe. So
Damn.
are we going to start seeing more of those drastic things because of all this shift and whatnot happening? Yes, Jess.
Well, I think that's a great point because honestly, again, going back to football, but this has been a conversation. Like there should be there needs to be one more level,
Mm-hmm.
like the elite of the elite, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the D1 is like people don't realize how many D1 schools there are. I almost got in an argument with this dude about this because he was like, name a D1 school. I was like, bro, there are like 300. Like, what are you talking about? Like, stop. Like, there are so many D1 schools, but you can only keep track of a certain amount of them. But resource wise, like you said, these smaller conferences, WCC is not going to keep up with Big Ten.
Mm-mm.
Period. Like ever in any world. Like
Yeah.
it's just, there's no way. Part of that is again, you don't have football. So you don't have certain resources. Point blank period. But like so it's like is there now a D1 and a D1A or you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like doesn't football do that? And I'm sorry, I don't know football that well,
They
but
do
where
FBS and
it's like
FCS, right?
does there need to be another level of separation? And it's sad because I think we all relish the Cinderella stories in March Madness. That's kind of what people love to see. And that might get decreased a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But resource wise, on the women's basketball side, at SC, UCLA, South Carolina, like those schools, resource wise, it is going to be hard, even within their conferences, for some of the other schools to keep up.
When they first started talking about implementing NIL some years ago now, the first thing that popped into my head is this is going to introduce kids in college to the real world where some people hoard all this money over here and the rest of everybody else has to make good with what they have over here. And I feel like that exact same pattern is what we're seeing now. We're going to start seeing with the units, right? You've got kind of it's a weird but established Cinderellas, right? You've got the South Dakota States of the world and you've got those schools who maybe in a Power 4 Pac-12 conference, or maybe a perennial powerhouse in a smaller conference and continue getting to the tournament. When you make the tournament, you're going to get that money. You're going to get more resources. You're going to have more money to pay a better assistant coach or add a nutritionist to your staff or build out your strength and conditioning space in your arena. Like those schools are going to start having that stuff. And that money is going to continue to funnel towards the top of whatever conferences those are, whether they be big or small. Everybody else, those
It's not
Cinderella
even start, they
stories.
already do.
Yeah, I know, right? It's already such a great disparity. So it's only going to get worse from here. And those Cinderella stories, like you mentioned, it's going to be basically impossible to compete.
And let me just say this to compliment what you're saying, Mish. It's you already see from a political standpoint that divide happening as well. Like shout out to the University of Portland, but they just had a 29-4 season. They're the first 29 wins team ever to get left out of the NCAA tournament.
That's tough. And it's up to a
But
committee whether or not you go
exactly.
to the tournament and get that money. Yeah.
And again, shout out to Big Ten, love them. Big Ten had 12 seeds, and you left out a 20 team.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like that's where I'm like, that complements what you're saying because it's also like that's a money conversation too. Because hey, guess what? Big Ten teams are going to pull bigger crowds.
Yep.
Perceived, right? That's the perception, at least. And so, why are we even trying to make them compete on the same thing? I guess is my point. Like, not to take away from. It's great. Then UP went on. I think they're playing. I can't remember the name of the tournament now. I think it used to be NIT, but they beat Stanford. So it's like big win, historic win, right? They're having one of the best seasons they've had in program history.
Yeah. But what are you gonna get for it outside of saying, "Hey, we beat Stanford"? Yeah. That's a good
Shout out to the
point.
pilots, by the way.
Yeah. And I mean, we've touched on a lot of things, but not even to mention, like you said, the other sports. You know what I mean? You talk about discrepancies. Now,
You know how hard
football,
it is for a softball
basketball.
player to travel? I didn't realize this. I learned this because they got bats, they got gloves, they got catcher equipment. Like,
Yep.
good Lord.
Yep. So
Like,
we ain't even talking about the disparity being created between different sports in college, but
yeah.
we'll move on from that. So we mentioned the mid majors that kind of do make it into the tournament are going to benefit from that money, especially this season. If you were a coach or an AD or whatever at a mid major school, getting money for an appearance, whether it be the amount that you should get from your conference or not, what moves do you prioritize to get your program in better shape? And if you're a player, what would you be asking for?
I'm going to pay players immediately. That's what I'm going to do, right? Because at the end of the day, the better the players, other players want to go there, and they can really attract more players. So a coach, I'm going to get better coaches. So when I'm using that money, I've got to be able to pay people. If I'm a player, how much would I ask for? This is how much I'm going to ask for. $850.
Damn! That might be the whole allotment for the whole conference.
I don't care. I don't care.
Read
the number.
Props.
She said
Read the number.
$850,000.
That's what I'm asking
Where
for.
did you get those props?
Don't worry about it.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Where are we getting props from?
Run me my money. You see that right there? That's what I want. Don't give me nothing less or I ain't coming. I want my mama to have a house. I want my daddy to have a gym so he can train. And that's it. But $850.
I have so many questions about that number, but I also have questions as a coach. What? So you mean paying players via NIL? What are we saying? Are we just going back to the mid thousands?
Coupons, shoe out, everything. I want it all. So that's what I'm asking for. Because at this point, NCAA ain't got no control over it. So I might as well ask for top dollar. I might as well just go ahead and go for it. They ain't stopping me. Like, we got kids already making $250, $300. Yeah. Ain't saved a life. Ain't done CPR on nobody. Ain't helped nobody to get better in life, in school. You putting the ball in the basket. Possibly consistently. Come on now. The way I was shooting back in the day, $850.
Oh,
bring me my money. And if they don't know, now they know.
We need to go pull them Benson highlight tapes, the VHS tapes.
Hey, they gonna be crusty and grainy. You ain't gonna be able to. Is that Benson?
Child. Anyways, Jazz, Mel, what you asking for if you're a coach or a player?
If I'm a coach, I'm first. Is what you mentioned is staff, but my staff has to change because at the end of the day, like I said, Gino said it great. It's a semi-pro world now. You're navigating it differently than you did. I mean, I had the privilege of coaching at the University of Portland for some years, and it's like what we were doing then would not work right now. Like from a standpoint of just from a resource management, from business IQ to how are you navigating this business world? Like you need somebody who's not just like, oh, they know basketball. They got to know business. They got to know how to move money, how to work with money. You need somebody who understands some loose accounting. You need some better visibility, transparency, like Benson said. Like I need somebody who knows how to work their way through a market from a like the same way they would at the WNBA level because it's like that's where you're at now.
That's
like it may not you trades, free agency, portal. Like what are we talking about here? And so I think from a staffing standpoint, especially if you are a mid-major school where you may not have as many roles, you probably don't need as many people literally doing the X's and O's. That is why head coach, I am here. Or if that is my strength, right? Whatever my strength is, if I'm really good at the business side, I need somebody who's really good at X's and O's. If I'm really good at X's and O's, I need that business IQ person on my staff, period. Because it's exactly what Benson was saying. Like you gotta know somebody who knows that money and how to move it. Then if I'm a player, I don't really know. I mean, these kids are different nowadays. I'm probably asking for money too at the end of the day, because like what else do you know? Like, let's be real, a lot of these players that are so elite, they don't come from a lot. So, Yeah, run
Give
me
me
the
the
money.
money.
Like that's the end of the conversation. But there's a coach on the men's side who has basically established this whole thing where to decrease the predatory environment for their players, right? Where it's like if you want to help represent a player, you don't get any money from it. Having some situations set in place like that, that where my players feel protected and safe, where they can get their bag, but then also you have the business acumen within my staff to help protect these players. I think that's one thing that Don has been doing so great over at SC, making sure her players get some of that cut and keeping it from being too predatory. So
That's what's up. They need to start hiring some more Jazz Dallases. They got the business acumen
I'm
and
right
can give
here.
you an X and an O. I could give you an out of bounds play.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Get you a Jasmine Dallas.
There we go.
Mel, what you asking for if you're a coach or a player?
I agree with what everybody says, so I'm not gonna repeat that. But for me, being me, a media department
I
for
knew you was gonna say that.
Come on now. Come on
But
now.
you right.
But
You ain't
real.
lying.
Yes.
You
Media,
ain't lying.
marketing, all of that. Like, hire me too. Come on, me and Jazz, we make a great
Right.
team. Come through. But it's that investment of getting somebody behind there and knowing women's basketball, knowing these players and how to make them look good and marketable. I think
Perceived
that's
value.
absolutely important.
Yeah.
Yes, perceived value. If I'm a player, personal chef, personal driver.
Oh, get my hair too.
Oh, hair, nails, pedicures, all of that. But a personal one. I need to be able to choose pick of the litter, and they need to be at my call, anytime a day. We talking 4 a.m., we talking midnight, we
Oh,
talking
you want
2
somebody
p.m.
chauffeur you to the parties on campus. That's what you want.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right.
Tinted
But then your
windows.
coach is gonna know.
Nah.
I know.
She
Everywhere
wouldn't-
you
she
go,
wouldn't
you
play
get a
very long.
rival.
She wouldn't play very long.
I
That's
do
a
want
setup.
that. I do want that chef though. I do want that chef though.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Because people be hungry in the middle of the night.
People being
That's not
Melanie.
why for me, but okay.
Well,
Because people be hungry, you better get you a bowl of cereal.
I'm saying get
Hey,
you some Captain Crunch.
It
girl.
sound personal. We had noodles.
Uh-oh.
We had noodles.
We had the
Noodles.
ramen, okay? We had the cup noodles.
Yes, we had noodles. Yes.
I'm crying. Well, these are all excellent suggestions. If you are a coach or a player and your team made it to the NCAA tournament, you trying to figure out what to do with that cash, some suggestions, perhaps. Well, regardless, this is a new era for women's basketball, the unit era. So we're gonna see. We've made a couple of predictions here, but the way things play out, only time will tell. So, but again, this has been Can't Retire from This Sideline Story. You know what I'm saying? We bring it to you live, how we feel it, how we think it. Thanks for joining us. That's it for us, y'all. The Can't Retire fam appreciates you tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to the pod on whatever platform you prefer and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Can't Retire Project. Sideline Stories, a Can't Retire from This podcast, is produced and edited by Melanie Page, Brittany Brown, and Misha Jones. Our hosts are Misha Jones, Melanie Page, Jasmine Dallas, and Tanisha Benson, with special guest host Lindsay Allen. Thanks for listening.
After all this time, it's still a fire in my eyes. I'ma keep shooting my shot 10,000 more times. Yeah, I move like life really is on the line. How could I let go of something this special? Every single day I see a sign, a reason not to stop, keep it pushing through the grind. Look how far I came, baby, I've been on the rise. After all this time, it's still a fire in my eyes. I'ma keep shooting my shot 10,000 more times. Yeah, I move like life really is on the line. How could I let go of something this special?